right, good morning, everybody. Today we're going to be learning about Arthur Miller, author of The Crucible. So welcome to our online classroom. I hope you're having a great snow day, and we'll get ready to get started. You probably want to jot some notes down. Obviously, you do have access to this slideshow in your email inbox, but it might help to write some things down, as some of this you'll see later coming up on the test, some of the background about Arthur Miller and just some info about The Crucible. Okay, so grab a notebook and we'll get started. A little bit about Arthur Miller. He was one of the big three American lit playwrights. We already learned about Tennessee Williams, and we've mentioned Eugene O'Neill before. We won't be reading anything of his, but he was one of the other big three. You can see his picture there as an older man, got some rocking glasses. He did experience a lot of fame and success in his lifetime, especially the decades between the 40s and the 60s. Very famous, very successful, very lucrative career. Okay, so that's a picture of him from his first big play production. Just some background, he was born in 1915 in New York City, lived there most of his growing up years. His family was of Polish-Jewish descent. He, as a young man, was exempt from World War II. He did not have to sign up for the draft, or he did not have to be drafted, because he had a football injury to his kneecap, or previous football injury. His family was pretty wealthy until the Great Depression. They lost everything in the stock market crash of 1929, and he had to help support the family just to make ends meet. He would get up really early as a teenager and deliver bread before school to help his family out with the bills. Okay, so he did win a Pulitzer Prize for drama early on in his career. He's famous and probably in the public eye a little more than many playwrights because he was married to Marilyn Monroe. She was the second of his three wives. You see some pictures of them there, the happy couple. She was one of the most, if not the most popular stars of the time period. So, he's a fairly good-looking guy, but gotta wonder. I guess he's has a good personality, I guess. Who knows? Anyways, she credits him with a big influence on her conversion to Judaism. His family was Jewish, as we mentioned before, and she converted while she was married to him for, I believe, only about 5 years before they divorced. But, yeah. All right. His first big play was called All My Sons. It's still in production even today, as you can see from this random high school's play poster. It was a hit on Broadway, very successful. It earned him a Tony, and it's was later followed by Death of a Salesman, also a big hit, still popular in many theater companies today. A lot of his plays feature Jewish characters. A lot of them use Jewish themes and Jewish cultural information. Okay, a little background history related to Arthur Miller, but separate as well. The HUAC. This stands for the House Un-American Activities Committee. So un-American meaning communist at this time. So this was a committee, a government committee, started after World War II, just in response to a growing fear against communist spies, communist invaders, communist infiltration in the government. Their one job is to investigate and prosecute American citizens who may have communist ties, may or may not have communist ties. There was a period of time after the war, also known as McCarthyism, and the Red Scare. Red is kind of a nickname for communist, anything communist. And it was just, there was a really prevalent fear in America. It was a very patriotic time in our history. Everyone was really like, go USA, we won the war, yay. But anything that was against the government or against America was very unpopular, especially communism. And it's not like today where it's almost heroic to speak out against the government, or at least popular. Back then it was almost a criminal activity, or at least thought to be a criminal activity to do so. And you were labeled with a lot of suspicion. You could be arrested, you could be thrown in jail, your career could be over, your identity could be just basically taken away from you. It was not a good situation if you were even suspected of having communist ties. Some people, though, did have communist ideas, at least, even if they weren't connected with Russia or other governments. A lot of the labor class, some high elite intellectuals and academics, and some of the artist group, like playwrights, for example, musicians, etc., did have these left-leaning communist ideals. Even if they weren't doing anything about it, they kind of espoused the philosophy of that. And so many of them were arrested, guilty or not. They were often charged, and it just was not a good situation for them. Miller was one of these. He did have these communist ideals, at least for a short period of. So he did try to renew his passport to go to Germany, and he ended up, as a result, being subpoenaed by the HUAC. He was put on trial, and during that trial, he did confess to have some leftist ideals, but he was asked to give the names of other communists and turn them in to the government, and he refused to do so. He cited that the First Amendment protected his right to remain silent. And as a result, the court didn't like this very much. He was found guilty. His charge was contempt of Congress, and he was sentenced to a $500 fine or 30 days in jail as a result. He didn't end up suffering the penalty because this ruling was overturned. But even still, it was very unpopular. He was blacklisted by Hollywood. They refused to put on any of his plays or dramas after that. Even still, Broadway still continued to run his work, but Hollywood said, "We're done with you." So, it was really unpopular at the time with the common people, at least, to have anything related to communism, or even if you didn't, just to be having rumors that you did was not good for your personal life or your career. So this was a really impactful moment in Arthur Miller's life. He saw that many of his friends, colleagues, peers did not make the choice that he did. They were put on trial as well, but when asked to give up the names of other communist traitors, they fessed up and turned their friends in. And he was just really disgusted at that, thought it was pretty low, and that a person should never do that. And it kind of sparked the... So the Crucible, if you're not aware, it takes place during a time in America's history before the Revolutionary War, during some of the colonial settlements called the Salem Witch Trials. Salem, Massachusetts is infamous during this period for prosecuting and hanging found guilty of collaborating with the devil, religious crimes, if you will. And they're infamous for that because, as we can see, looking back on this history, they were very unjust trials. Most of the people were probably innocent, and several of them may have had mental illness. Some of them were just maybe unpopular, and just got the shaft from their neighbors who wanted to get rid of them, and just some kids who started a whole dramatic episode. And You'll see when we read it. So Arthur Miller kind of feels like he relates to some of these people who are put on trial and found guilty, even though they're probably innocent, and he starts connecting his experience with that of this time period in history. So this is a quote from him. A living connection between myself and Salem, and between Salem and Washington, was made in my mind. The main point of the hearings, precisely as in the 17th century Salem, was that the accused make public confession, damn his confederates, as well as his devil master. He goes on, but yeah, we'll see as this unfolds, kind of a lot of his own emotions coming out in the character. Okay, so that's all for Arthur Miller. What I'd like you to do for participation points for today is to please send me an email that just tells me, hey, I watched the slideshow, I learned like one thing that you learned, just so I know that you did that, and you'll get some points. And the second thing we were going to do in class as a play, but we'll just have to do it on your own, is we're going to read Act 1 of The Crucible. So you can find it, there's a link right there, I'll post it on end. Just use this link. There's some other links out there. If you Google tons of them, but sometimes the numbering of the acts and scenes is a little different. So it would be good if you just use this one. That means we're all kind of on the same track together. Okay? So yeah, Act 1, and there's an introduction to Act 1 that starts, I believe, on page 4. You could just probably skim over that so you get a little bit of the background on who these people are and what they're doing. You don't have to read all of it really carefully. We're going to piecemeal it together in class today. But yeah, just skim over that and then start where the scene with people start talking where Parrish is praying. So start there and read through the end of Act 1. Best of luck. And let me know if you have any questions. I'll see you on Thursday. Oh, sorry, one more thing. The homework for tomorrow is posted on End Grade. It's Act 2. Today is Act 1. Tomorrow is Act 2. And there'll be an End Grade quiz as well. There is an End Grade quiz as well that goes with Act 2 for tomorrow. So we'll pick up with that on Thursday. And email me if you have any questions. Have a great snow day. Bye-bye.